Welcome to the Fantasy Throwdown Podcast. The Fantasy Throwdown Podcast. Bringing you the latest from the world of daily fantasy sports and gambling, so you can stop Googling how to join a squid game to cover all those parlays you thought were such a sure thing. Now, sit back and listen to one of the sharpest minds in the game. Here's your host, Dwayne Callender.
Hello, friends. Dwayne Callender here. It is Masters Week, and obviously, we have a tournament to win. So, without much further ado, let's get right into it. I'm done with the Jim Nantz impersonation. Honestly, the big story coming into the Masters is Tiger Woods for obvious reasons. Tiger is Tiger. You know, we all know what Tiger can do, but the reality situation is that, you know, we're all pulling for Tiger, but we got to be realistic in terms of how we're approaching this from a DFS standpoint. And this is actually one of the classic cases of sometimes it's better to do a bet than an actual roster construction for DFS purposes. For the Masters, you've got similar course structure at Augusta National, but they did lengthen the course. And we do have inclement weather expected throughout the week, so it's expected to be wet and rainy in terms of the weather, and also having wind, which is going to likely make this course even longer. If we're being honest with ourselves here, Tiger is not that well equipped to take on a longer course coming off of a major life-threatening injury, given the extent of his injury. So let's be honest with ourselves here. This is not the Tiger of old. This is the Tiger of many injuries and not in form, just trying to get himself into playing condition. So I look at it as that, you know, Tiger's not going to ride around the golf cart. That's just not the way he is. The body, we have no idea how he's going to hold up. Even if he makes the cut, we don't know how his body's going to hold up over an entire 4 days of golf. To me, this is one of the most clear-cut fades ever for a DFS slate. Now, if we're betting, we're getting plus money that Tiger makes the cut. So he's at even money to make the cut. And you just got to hope he can navigate to make the cut. That, to me, that's where the bet is for Tiger Woods. There is no way I am picking Tiger to be a top 10 or top 20 finish. I think you're being way too aggressive. To make the cut at the Masters, you've got 90 golfers and about 20 golfers who are so far past their prime because they're past winners, and of course, as a past winner, you have the right to keep playing for as long as you want at Augusta every year. So the field is automatically inflated due to prior winners just playing at the course, even though technically they don't have a realistic shot of winning. So realistically, you've got a field of 90, getting it down to 60. You're just trying to beat 30 guys. And you already know that a bulk of those guys are not making the cut anyway. That's why, you know, you could get a Bernard Longer or a Freddie Couples to make the cut, because just not that many guys you have to beat. So that's why I look at it and say, yeah, could Tiger navigate the course, you know, get himself at even or 1 or 2 under par and make the cut? Absolutely. To make a serious run at contention, I don't see how that's happening. You know, unless Tiger wows us once again and, you know, is sandbagging us, I just don't see how he's going to hold up over 4 days playing consistently. And no one's going to say that Tiger's swing is bad or anything else. So, you know, all the reports are looking positive. The public is going to bank on Tiger, so you're going to see ownership from a DFS standpoint. You're going to see Tiger ownership be over 20%. To me, that's where, from a game theory standpoint, not playing Tiger automatically makes you different in your 150 if you're doing 150 entries. Because in your 150, I can guarantee you some folks are still going to try to sprinkle in Tiger, even if it's on only 10 to 20 lineups. They'll still try to sprinkle Tiger in to their builds. And, by fading him completely, I think you get yourself at least a little bit different than some of the individual shit that you will likely be up against in a large field contest, especially on DraftKings, where you got a milli maker and a couple of milli makers, to be honest. By not having any Tiger exposure, I think that just automatically gets you different, where now we just have to start making some decisions as to who we prefer more, as we whittle down this player pool to be somewhere in the 33 to 35 golfer range, in my estimation. So all the way at the top, we're going to look at Scotty Scheffler and Jon Rahm. The reason why we're going to look at it is that for DFS purposes, people are not going to go to this range because they're all the way at the top. When you have loaded fields like the Masters, the pricing gets condensed where you get top players like a Brooks Koepka, who would normally be 10K and above. Now they're 9K. So you can get Koepka, you can get Patrick Cantlay, you can get Hideki Matsuyama, who's won the Masters before. You can get a Bryson DeChambeau. You can get even Rory. While he got the 10K, Rory McIlroy is going to be one of the most popular plays, even at 10K. And it's normally more expensive to get guys like that. When you get up to Rahm at 10,800 and Scheffler at 11,000, the salary becomes a bit too high because those people are going to be looking to jam in the 9K range, as well as when you can play a Tony Finau at 8,100. You got Joaquin Niemann at 8,200, Sam Burns at 8,600. There's so much value that you can jam in the 8K range with the 9K. Like, that's basically where people are going to live. They're going to live in the 8 and 9K range, and maybe they'll put in Rory. And I can guarantee you that when they play those builds, they'll throw in, I'll throw in my cheap guy as Corey Connors at 7,600. Corey Connors is going to be one of the most owned guys this week. As well he should. He's one of my most popular plays. And at 55 to 1 to win it all, he's one of my favorite bets too, because of his iron play. But the thing of it is that it's going to be so stereotypical when you just play the 8 and 9K range. When you go all the way at the top for Rahm and Scheffler, and I'm talking about playing both of them, it forces your construction build to actually condense. So I will have a number of builds where I'm playing Rahm and Scheffler. Yes, I'll play Connors. And then it'll force me to start playing guys in a much cheaper tier. And so you go below Corey Connors. Yes, you'll play Connors at 7,600, but like you're going to go below into the 7 and 6K range because you can play a bunch of great guys. Gary Woodland's only 6,900. Brian Harman's 6,800. Woodland is 100 to 1. Harman's 150 to 1. Guess what? You are going to see a number of names that aren't that much high. Like Webb Simpson is 7,500. He's 130 to 1. Paul Casey, I don't understand how, because of his issues with withdrawing from tournaments because of injury. He's got back spasms. I think Casey's one of the worst plays. Betting wise, he's 60 to 1 and he's 7,600. I think Casey's one of the easiest plays to just bet to not make the cut and get plus money on it. I just don't think people are factoring in the injury issues. So to me, I think Casey's one of those guys you fade, and you can even bet on not making a cut as one of the props to do. But from a DFS standpoint, people are not looking at the 6K range. I can tell you that because there's just so much condensed pricing. You can fit in just a ton of value in the 9K range. You play Corey Connors at 7,600, and that's the cheapest you go. So, like, you'll see ownership with Corey Connors, like, be somewhere projected in the teens. I think he'll probably be over 20%. But I don't have problems with playing a guy like Corey Connors because I know he can win the tournament outright. So, I don't worry about the ownership percentages for players if I think they can win outright. Now, if you're telling me that from a pricing standpoint, we're going to see, and I like him too. Don't get me wrong. I'll play some shares of him. But, I'll be lower in most regards just because I'm not entirely sold on him winning the tournament. It's going to be someone along the lines of a Jordan Spieth. And yes, Jordan Spieth has excellent course history at Augusta. Don't get me wrong. But Spieth is also one of the streakiest golfers in the world. So while, yes, I'll have some shares of Spieth, I'm not going to go crazy over it either by trying to match the field that's going to be in the teens with him. I'm going to outright fade Rory McIlroy because I think it's mental at this point that, yes, he only needs the Masters to complete the career Grand Slam. He hasn't shot well at Augusta in quite some time. Yes, he's done it in the past, but it's been so long now that it's become like Serena Williams trying to break the all-time Grand Slam record for women's tennis. Mentally, you hit a roadblock in some of the tougher matchups that you can't get over. I think Rory's at that stage. So, again, I'm not saying that Rory can't make the cut here. I would say that for someone like Casey, who has had injury issues and can pull out. Rory, I can see making the cut, doing absolutely nothing, and on Sunday, he finishes somewhere in the mid-30 or just into the high 20 range, but not cracking the top 20. And at the price tag of some of these players, if you're over 9K, like, I need you to be in the mix to win it all if you're going to ship a tournament. Can you min cash or like do a little bit better than min cash if like not all the guys are in contention Sunday and they're expensive? Yeah, certainly. But I'm looking for win equity with some of these plays. So give me Scheffler, give me Rahm. I'll look at Dustin Johnson at 10,500. I'll look at Justin Thomas at 10,300. Like, I'll live with that. I'm not as sold on a guy like Colin Morikawa or Victor Hovland, even though they're 20-1 odds-wise with the sportsbook. Their games around the green, I wouldn't necessarily say is that strong for this course. I don't think it's a great course fit for either golfer. So, yeah, you'll have top players being owned, and to get different, I'm just going to fade them outright. So I'm going to fade Morikawa. I'm going to fade Hovland. And again, this gets us different because you start out with builds where you're avoiding Tiger, you're avoiding Rory, you're avoiding Morikawa, you're avoiding Hovland. You're already different than 80% of the field because I guarantee you, with the names I just rattled off, at least one of them's on most rosters because they're popular with projections. And as you like try to generate 150 lineups with some of these optimizers, one of those things is going to pop up. So by fading them all, you're already different from a lineup construction standpoint. And, we can see how it goes from there. I think we're going to reach the stage in the NBA soon where teams are going to be incentivized. In terms of and by teams, I mean roster construction wise. When you're building out rosters, you're going to feel a bit more pressure, I feel, down the line in future years, because I think this has happened enough times with lineup construction with the master set. It's just so condensed that people just keep living in the middle, and I think eventually people are going to catch on that you got to be a little bit more adventurous in terms of your lineup construction if you seriously want to contend. But I would say, like, culling and it is a cull. Let's be clear here. It's like you're finding reasons to just knock some guys off tiers. It's like Terrell Hatton is a solid golfer, but he's not going to be in my 150 lineups. Not because I hate him, but it's just he just didn't make the cut. And if you're trying to get down to a very specific number of golfers, you're going to have to make some of those tougher calls. So my player pool is right around 35 golfers, and it's a pretty tight list. So I don't know what else to say other than you have to be willing to go a little bit extra in terms of creativity in building out the rosters, because I can tell you that if you think you're going to, especially if you zero out the roster, but if you load up on a bunch of 9K golfers, play a Corey Connors as your cheapest guy, you will be duping roughly 45 to 60% of the field at some point. It's just going to happen because there's only so many options you're going to go, and you're automatically, because too many folks are obsessed with zeroing out that roster in terms of team budget and not leaving money on the table, you're going to dupe rosters. So there's no way you can solo ship a tournament because you were that chalky with your builds. If you left a ton of money on the table, yeah, it's possible you can get a bit more lucky with maybe a Francesco Molinari, who's in the 6K range. I believe he's 6,800. You can catch fire in the bottle and have him go off, as opposed to playing an 8K guy. If you max out the salary on your in your team budget. So again, food for thought. It could not work out, but I think, if you're being honest with yourselves here in terms of your DFS roster construction, you have to be willing to be bold in terms of your calls. And so for me, I'm very bullish on Scheffler and Rahm. I'll play Xander Schauffele. I'll play Corey Connors. But I'll have a number of rules where sometimes I won't mix Rahm and Scheffler together, because you may not need to go down that road. Because even the folks that I know who are going to pick at the top, they may pair Rahm and Scheffler together. So, well, yes, I'll have some lineups of that regard. I'll have others where it's just Rahm. I'll have others where it's just Scheffler, and then we kind of run through the core plays. Cam Smith, definitely going to be highly owned. He's 14-1, and one of the most popular plays to get it done. It's not a bad way to go. I mean, Rahm and Scheffler are 10 and 12-1, respectively. Cam Smith is right there at 14-1. I don't have an issue playing Cam Smith. I do have an issue of playing Cam Smith if that's all you're going to do, because if you're playing Cam Smith and you're playing Connors, right off the bat, you're more than likely to dupe, and there's always potential to get a little bit different without doing that much. And saving salary is one way to go about it. If you're ever concerned about who's who and which way you should be going in terms of looking for pivots, slight salary savings at the Masters, I think, is and remains one of the most viable strategies you could ever do for yourselves with your lineup construction, especially in majors where the salary undergoes a tremendous amount of condensing. So, in terms of outright bets, I already kind of talked about it in general, but the outright bets that I would be looking at would be Corey Connors at 55-1. I do have interest in, I didn't talk about him as much, but you guys kind of get a sense of guys that I would be considering. You got Dustin Johnson at 16-1, as well as Brooks Koepka at 20-1. I think they are both certainly fine and viable options. I'll be having a ton of concentrations on Jon Rahm and Scotty Scheffler, so even with outright bets, it's not that great of a number, but I'll throw in my hat there too, and then basically kind of concentrating on top 20 finishes across the board between Rahm, Scheffler, Connors. They're all going to be in play for me, betting-wise, to be in the top 20. And we've got different ranges across the book, so you may have to poke around between DraftKings, Fanduel, MGM, Caesars, just to spot out the best numbers, because sometimes you might get some fluctuation. So this is definitely a case where if you have access to multiple books where you opened up accounts, to shop around and try to get the best number available before just plopping down a bet like just offhand. So again, couple of ways to go. I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna go too crazy over the technical aspects of like the shot making ability of certain players. I think what feels like the Masters. I try to focus on narratives and where you think ownership is going to be on certain plays that you can kind of get yourself away from. I think the Tiger news has everyone excited, as well we should be, but I wouldn't let the rose-colored glasses get you off track for what you need to do to be able to build out a competitive lineup that can actually win you a tournament. So that's why Tiger is definitely out of my player pool for me. And, as you start picking off some of these names in the 9K range, not because they're bad, but just because of, they're going to generate ownership. If I don't think they have the win equity, I don't think you should be playing a golfer above 8,500 this week. If you don't think they can win the tournament outright, I just wouldn't do it. So, that's all I have, but it's going to be an entertaining Masters, I feel, in my overall gut, just because of the Tiger news and how good Scotty Scheffler's been taking over the world number one. I expect a strong response from Jon Rahm this week, trying to put it all together. So we should be in line for some good golf coming up. And obviously, we have baseball opening day on track, so a lot of action to come the rest of the weekend into the weekend. So most certainly looking forward to everything that will go down. But thanks again for listening. I'm going to get out of here, and best of luck to all of you with your contests and bets this week. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Throwdown Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and all other major outlets.